Hello everybody, welcome to Discussing Tabletop. It is of course June 22nd, 2019. This is episode 116 for those of you who are keeping track of these things. I guess some people out there do. Of course, joining me today is of course my illustrious co-host Joe. And we have a guest today. The first of two guests, so, I mean, like last week, we're going to go a two-episode guest model where we have guests dumping in. So the schedule for today is going to be pretty light, just because we have to head out a little early anyway. So we're going to talk with Adam here of Carpe
Omnis Games.
I was going to try to pronounce it differently, but I'm like, Omnis. Yes, I got to say it right. And then we have Brenna Noonan of Tabletop Tycoon coming in for a little while. And then the two of us, we just have one normal topic for today. I want to talk about BESM Naked, which isn't as sleazy as it sounds like. So, and then we'll try to hit up our normal segments as much as we can before we have to run off. So why don't we dive in, though, to the important section here, our interviews. And let's start out here because we got Adam with us. Hey.
Hello.
Let's start with the basics. So you've got your Carpe Omnis games, and I guess your big title you have right now is No Honor Among Thieves, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So why don't we start talking about
the only title I have right now?
Well, I mean, like if you check out your site, you've got some things in progress too.
That's true. Yeah, I do have I'm working on this. I'm working on this. Yeah. This is coming.
Yeah. So why don't we start by talking a little bit about what is Carpe Omnis Games, and then we can talk about No Honor Among Thieves before, moving on. Let's start with that.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Carpe Omnis Games is the single-person LLC that I put together to publish games that I made. Because I wanted to, I was working on a bunch of stuff, and I wanted to take it to Kickstarter. And if you do that, it's a good idea to have a company, because that protects you legally.
Yeah.
Just in case something goes wrong because it's Kickstarter and you don't know what you're doing.
Yes.
In my case, not enough things went wrong to sink me, which I'm very grateful for. And I was able to produce and sell Carpe Omnis, or sell No Honor Among Thieves. Went with the wrong name there for a moment. The name itself for the company is actually just from my old website, because I already had carpeomnis.com.
Mm-hmm.
For my blog, and I didn't feel like buying a new domain name.
I mean, that's a really good excuse for something like that. When you're looking for like a name for something, I mean, it's just like, it's what I had.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't want to go so far as to say people know Carpe Omnis, because I'm not super good at posting a lot of content to the blog. Whenever I'm writing something, it's probably something for what I'm currently working on, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's it was enough of an audience and enough of a established presence that it was easier for me to get set up there.
Cool. So your big title right now is No Honor Among Thieves. Why don't we talk about that a little bit? What kind of game is it? What do people need to know about it? Like when you're trying to pitch them this game, kind of thing.
All right. No Honor Among Thieves is a card game about being thieves in a fantasy city. Specifically, you're running a gang, and you are competing with other gangs to stage heists on different objectives, different wealthy and powerful individuals or establishments in this fantasy kingdom. You can work together with other players, which makes the heist a lot easier. In fact, a lot of them are completely impossible if you're not working together with someone else. If you're working together with someone else, they can betray you, or you can betray them. If that happens, then the Thieves' Code of Honor is broken, and for the rest of the game, a bunch of abilities you couldn't use beforehand start coming into play. So the assassin character starts killing people. The grave robber starts getting money whenever someone gets killed. There's a character that steals cards from other people's hands. There's a character that steals money from other people. There's characters that destroy other people's resources. Everything starts getting more dangerous when the Thieves' Code of Honor is broken, which happens a lot because there is no honor among thieves.
That makes sense.
That is the basic pitch.
Cool.
It's it took a lot of time to put together, and it's got a lot of really good art, and I really like it.
No, your art looks good. I definitely have to say that. I like this style from the images you share, you can find out on, and definitely it's an interesting style game because I only hear a few games like this, but I think your focus definitely is a little different because you're definitely more like card based.
Yeah.
And the only other game I know is much more board game based, which I guess is similar, but I guess has less of the idea of like the fantasy to it. That's just more,
What game is that, out of curiosity?
Is it like Thief or something?
Yeah, I think so.
It's like a board game.
That would make sense.
Yeah, but that's more like medieval, like not fantasy, like actually just like murdering thieves types. And it has a different dynamic than that because like you have like when the thieves' code is broken, there's no going back. That one is if people screw you, they screw you, kind of thing.
Right.
Which that's why I think I like yours a little better because it's that one I always disliked that game actually because people would always screw me over right away and it threw me off the game. The game might be good, but I just dislike it because you have to play with people that aren't jerks. Well, this one you might not want to do that because there's a intrinsic game buffer to that. When you give people the option of being jerks, they oftentimes take it. When you make it that there's like, yes, I can get stuff from being jerks, but so can my enemies, that can hold it back, and I like that a lot better.
Oh yeah, everyone gets the new abilities.
Yeah. So it's a trade-off to be a jerk.
Yep. Also, if you aren't a jerk, you can ask them for money in exchange for not being a jerk.
See? There's advantages to it, and I like that a lot better, definitely.
There's incentives for everything in the game. You can play it in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's also another important thing for a lot of games to have that. Now, you also have some upcoming stuff too. I believe.
Oh yeah.
The one that's on your site is Station 9. Can you tell me a little bit about that one? How that's coming along?
Sure. Station 9. Well, it's that one's been delayed a bit, just because the current tariffs on board game importation are making me a little nervous, or the ones that they've announced. I'm not 100% sure if they've been implemented yet, but I'm probably going to publish the other thing that's on my site first.
Okay.
At this point, definitely am, because I was pretty close to being finished with like both of those projects, and then those tariffs happened, and I'm like, well, okay.
That's actually an interesting thing that like some like tariffs can show up and just like make it that you're changing schedules.
Yeah, it was. I'm very, very happy that I wasn't. If I had focused on that project instead of, to be perfectly honest, I've been focusing more on Crooked Alleys, the other project listed on my site.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'd been focusing solely on Station 9, I would probably be doing a Kickstarter right now. And this would be a bad time for that, having just recently learned about those tariffs and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, to deliver the pitch, anyway, Station 9 is a game where everyone is playing a different alien race trying to share a single space station. Everyone has different life support requirements. So you're trying to... It's basically passive-aggressively changing the thermostat, except it's also the gravity, what gases are in the atmosphere, the air pressure, all kinds of different environmental things that you're trying to change so that you're comfortable, but everyone else probably isn't.
That sounds fun.
Makes me think of Babylon 5.
Yeah.
It's a pretty silly game. It's my attempt at a lighter game after making No Honor Among Thieves, which is, I'd say, like mid to heavyweight. Probably not like super heavyweight, but it takes a couple hours.
Yeah.
Station 9 then like immediately grew like 5 different decks, different types of cards. So I've been trying to cut that down a bit into something that's actually lightweight.
Yeah. And now the other project, the one you mentioned, Crooked Allies, or Alleys. I'm sorry, I was trying to say that wrong there for a second. Now this is interesting because this is more role playing, isn't it?
Yeah, This is tabletop role-playing games. Dungeons and Dragons, but not necessarily Dungeons and Dragons. You can use it with any tabletop role-playing system.
That's great.
So it's taking a lot of stuff that I researched for No Honor Among Thieves, or just for my tabletop role-playing game stuff in the past, because I love this genre, and turning it into a book. If you look over my blog, I have, going back to 2010, years and years of writing and random tables and content and stuff that I've written in this specific genre, which is, once again, fantasy thieves in a fantasy city. So this is a book about how to be underdog criminals in a fantasy city, how to run that game.
Cool. So you're keeping it very open that it can be that it's more like setting stuff, right? Rather than mechanics. That's very interesting.
Well, there are some mechanics that you can fold into whatever game you're running. So, for example, there's some very lightweight how to run a gang mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
So, these are the stats that your gang has. This is how to represent, a group of NPCs without having to keep track of every individual member, unless you're into that, I guess.
Yeah.
So there's some of that stuff. Depending on the game you're playing, it might already have that. When I was writing it, if I was playing Blades in the Dark, or running a game of Blades in the Dark, which anyone who reads that section of the book will probably be able to tell that immediately, because there's some stuff in there that is similar to how Blades in the Dark runs their gangs, the different cohorts of NPCs. And there's also a chapter on running and playing mysteries, a chapter on running and playing heists, a chapter on building cities, which is my personal favorite because I love random tables that I can roll on.
I do too. I do too.
It's so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
My brother, I've been testing that chapter by sending it to my brother, and he's been using it in a game that he's running. And so he's rolled up a mageocracy ruled by a mad sorcerer king with all kinds of hidden districts. It's good stuff.
That sounds fun.
And then there's a chapter that's just a couple of urban adventures, and then a bunch of collected tables from all my years of writing random tables.
Yeah. So you definitely had the experience with No Honor Among Thieves for Kickstarter, but you are basically shying away from that for your next kind of things, or are you just trying to get it out without those? Because it sounded like you were saying for Station 9 that you're trying to not rely on Kickstarter.
No, for Station 9 I'm going to have a Kickstarter. What I was saying was, my initial plan was to finish Station 9 about actually several months ago, and be doing a Kickstarter now-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started working more on Crooked Alleys because I got closer to finishing that, and I was like, oh, I can polish this up real fast. And that was a year ago, so it wasn't that fast, clearly. But I was saying, my initial schedule with Station 9 would have led to me doing the Kickstarter about now, and I am still planning on a Kickstarter, but if I was doing it now, I would have done all the budgeting without knowing about the tariffs.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Which is 25% on top of the manufacturing costs.
Oh yeah,
Ooh,
that would have been.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez.
These. I'm very upset about these tariffs. I have opinions.
I agree.
Man, no, because
there are 2 factories in the United States, to the best of my knowledge, where you can get full-service board game printing and assembly.
Wow, just 2?
Yeah. They're both owned by a Belgian company.
Wow.
So yeah, if you don't want to get hit by these Chinese tariffs, you're either going with them or you're going with Germany.
Oh God.
Wow. Shipping out of Germany is a nightmare.
Wow, so it sounds like it's an interesting situation for people that are making board games now, which
Yeah,
I don't want to get into the I'm going to try to avoid the political side of it, but it's interesting how a lot of weird news that are out there has actually effect on us in the market, in the tabletop market, that we that probably isn't talked about a lot.
It's been getting to that point. I didn't really expect politics to affect my board game hobby all that much.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, it's a lot easier to print books. So
yes, I'm sure.
Crooked Alleys is going to be like 200-ish pages. I can print that on demand depending on. I'm planning on running a Kickstarter for that, so I know how good I can make it, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
That's like, yeah, if less than like 300 or 500 people want it, I can print on demand, and I can get mostly black and white artwork. And then if 500 people or more want it, I can do an offset print run with higher quality and get color artwork and all that fancy stuff.
Cool. So what kind of experience did you have with Kickstarter? Because that's something that we've, on the show here, we do talk about, Kickstarters occasionally, trying to give shout-outs to a lot of different ones here and there. But with some of the guests we've had, we definitely can see that there's a lot of experience with this entire medium.
I really like Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you have to put the work in. I'll just really, really, really extensively. But once you do, you can fund whatever you feel like on there. I mean, okay, let me roll that sentence back significantly. Mm-hmm. You can fund whatever your good idea is on there.
Yes.
There are some things that you won't be able to fund on there, but in general, if you have a game and it's fun, and you're willing to show people that it looks good, you can make a game. If you just, as anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like I started developing a game and trying to publish it on Kickstarter because a recruiter who didn't hire me made an offhand comment about, oh, hey, you're a designer. Have you published anything on Kickstarter yet? Just like I started from literally 0, and then 2 years later I was on Kickstarter.
Cool. Well, that gets me into asking about what kind of background did you have in like tabletop and stuff leading up to becoming a designer?
Right. That particular recruiter was making that comment because I was in the game design and development program at Rochester Institute of Technology at the time. That was at like a career fair sort of thing. That program is focused more on video games though. So most of my history with board gaming is from playing board games and from just making them as a kid, actually. That was when you're super bored on summer vacation and hanging out with friends. That was just one of the things we did occasionally, was make a board game.
Cool.
Yeah, run around the yard playing capture the flag or kick the can or whatever, or make a board game. So there's a couple of things that I think my mom still has stashed in the basement. Actually, during my Kickstarter campaign for No Honor Among Thieves, my mom went down and found the first board game I ever made. And so I got to post a picture of that next to a picture of No Honor Among Thieves and be like, hey, this is what I was working on when I was 10.
I like that. That's nice. That also asks me kind of an interesting question too. Is how much have you experienced in the RPG market too? Well, just how much playing did you get into that too? Because we're big RPG players. Me and Joe here too, and since you're working on one, it kind of brings up the question of what kind of things have you gotten into, in that end?
I'm currently in 3 different campaigns in 3 different systems, and I've been playing tabletop role-playing games. I don't actually remember how long. I think it was sometime in middle school that I bought the 3rd edition of whatever the red box was for 3rd edition D&D, and just got my brothers to play for me, or to be the players as I ran a game. My first experience playing tabletop RPGs was being the DM for people who had never played before either.
That's always an interesting experience.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's still kind of fun.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, we had no idea what we were doing. It was great.
Joe, do you have any questions that I haven't hit on? I know I'm pretty good at hitting on most questions that you got usually.
Yeah, you got to them all pretty much early on. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm pretty good at that, apparently.
Yes, that's why I was also trying to get you to meet a little early.
Sorry, I've been busy. Been a busy morning.
Yes. Unfortunately, I can't think of anything off the top of my head at the moment.
Okay.
No worries, man.
Yeah. Okay. Throwing it back to the stuff you've done. Now, a lot of games and nowadays tend to do like things like little expansions and stuff like that. Did you ever think of, especially now, the Honor Monthlies, do you ever think of expansions for that?
Oh man, I have so many plans for an expansion for that. That expansion for No Honor Among Thieves is basically made already.
Okay.
The problem comes down to logistics and economics, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
I went with a manufacturer that's super high quality, Panda Games Manufacturing. Super high quality, they don't do small print runs. So I still have 500-ish, I think, copies left of No Honor Among Thieves in my warehouse. Out of an initial print run of 1,500, so that's still pretty good.
Yeah.
And to justify a print run of 1,500 copies of an expansion, I would need to have another print run of No Honor Among Thieves selling.
Okay.
Those are like the numbers I was looking at. I could go with another manufacturer for the expansion to someone who is willing to do a 500 copy print run, for example. Mm-hmm. That comes with its own problems. I'd have to do like a lot of work making sure that the components are identical, because you don't want to be able to tell the cards in the expansion apart from the base cards from the back or something like that.
Yeah.
I know Panda Games already knows how to make those exact components because they've done it.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's something I've been going back and forth on, like, oh, I should do, I should try and sell out of No Honor Among Thieves and then do a Kickstarter campaign to raise money for a reprint and an expansion. Or, oh, I should just do a smaller print run with a different manufacturer of the expansion. But I don't know which way I'm going to end up going with that, to be honest. But I do have a lot of ideas for an expansion.
No, that's another interesting problem about it, is that, you know, is having a game that's definitely sells, but does it sell enough to warrant, you know, the expansion, which would help to add to the game and might make it more popular too. So it's that kind of like weird double-edged sword of, can you hit that point to continue the momentum easily?
Right.
I'm hoping. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm probably. Damn, it really, really depends on how the game sells over the next like half a year or so. I was about to say like, no, I've actually made a decision as what I'm going to do for it, and then I realized, well, what if? I keep going back and forth in my head on what would be a better way of going about that. Yeah,
no, that's understandable. That's there are a lot of decisions because you are running the business, and that's one of those things that I think a lot of self-publishers or people that have small businesses like you that are tabletop publishing business have to realize, is that you're on the business side too, not just the design side.
The business side takes up a lot of time. Unfortunately, I would love to be making games all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I do like marketing and doing all the budgeting work and the publishing stuff, but I don't like doing it as often as I really need to.
Understandable. Are you planning on doing any conventions this year?
Yeah, actually. I've already been at PAX East, and I'm going to be back at PAX Unplugged.
Cool.
This time I'm not going to have my own booth. I'm going to be sharing a booth with a bunch of other people because they raised the prices on booths, and it's just a lot easier to gang up with a bunch of other indie publishers.
Yeah, I heard from a few of the people we talked to at PAX last year that the booths are a little bit expensive, especially when you're a smaller publishing company.
Mm-hmm. I was only able to be at PAX East because I was grouping up with this group of indie publishers. There's a game cafe in Boston called Night Moves that was organizing it and like inviting indie publishers to share a booth with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so thanks to those guys, I was able to be selling my games and demoing the game at PAX East. And now I'm joining them at PAX Unplugged this year as well. And I'm going to PAX West, but I don't have a booth there because those are the most expensive.
Wow. That's interesting to hear, just because I know that like PAX East has grown bigger than PAX West, so kind of at this point in time.
PAX West is the original, and
I guess it's
where each of the PAXs has like a different focus, and PAX West is the AAA one.
Mm-hmm.
PAX East is like the indie video game one. PAX South was the tabletop one, and then they made PAX Unplugged, so I'm not sure what that status is right now.
I was there before PAX
Australia.
I was there at PAX South when they announced PAX Unplugged, so that was the first and last time I've been to South, and I would love to be again, just because it was an interesting event. But I have no idea.
I haven't ever been to South, actually, and it seems like it'd be a great excuse to go to Texas and eat barbecue. And
I had authentic Mexican, and that was really nice.
Excellent.
I think I've hit up most of the thoughts I had to ask you about. Joe, do you have anything else at this point in time?
No, it does look like a really interesting game. I was watching the YouTube playthrough you did, and it looks like a lot of fun. I do want to test that out at some point.
All right. Do you have Tabletop Simulator on Steam by any chance?
Yep.
Yes.
We actually do that tabletop on Sundays on Steam.
There is a free mod for No Honor Among Thieves on Tabletop Simulator if you want to try it out.
Cool.
Oh, cool.
I don't know if you own a physical copy of the game or not, so I figured I would mention
currently,
that.
no, we do not.
Well, you can buy them on my website. Is this the part where I plug my stuff?
If you want to plug your stuff, go ahead, yes.
You can buy them on my website, carpeomnis.com, which you may or may not be able to spell, so you can also Google No Honor Among Thieves game, and it's the thing that comes up.
Yep. And I'm sure Matt will put
I'll put links
link
for
in the chat
everybody in descriptions, that everybody
Fantastic.
can see it.
Appreciate
definitely. So, yeah. So I guess thanks for joining us today. We'd love to have you again on sometime if around the time if you ever get one of the Kickstarters out, or at very least let us know when the Kickstarter comes out, and we'll definitely shout it out for you.
All right, sounds like a plan. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yep.
Thanks for coming.
All right, I'm going to throw up the top screen and for us a second as we switch over guests, and we'll be back in a minute. All right, okay, got a little adjustments here. But welcome back, and we have our second guest for today. We have Brenna?
Yes, it's Brenna.
Okay, good. Because I can oftentimes butcher names, and I apologize to everybody I always butcher names for. It's one of those.
People have a surprisingly difficult time with Brenna, so you got it on the first try, so I appreciate that.
I mean, that was luck then. Yep.
He's notorious for being bad with words in general.
There's a reason
so naturally you have a show where you talk a lot. So.
Okay, I like tabletop a lot, but my education is in mathematics, not in anything else. So, all right. So, hi, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So, why don't we start the very basics? Is like, who are you and what do you do in the tabletop community?
Yes, I'm Brenna. I work for a publisher called Starling Games. I do kind of a bunch of different things. I manage like our marketing and brand presence, but I also do game development. I work in production. I build our websites. So I kind of do a lot of different things. Just when you work for a small company, you have to wear a lot of different hats. So I end up doing that.
Yeah. Now, like, I got you. I kind of got in contact with you because you connected through, I guess, Tabletop Tycoon, which seems to be like a larger group with smaller companies in it. Like, can you explain how that works?
Yeah, so Tabletop Tycoon is like an umbrella company, basically.
Yeah.
So they have a publishing division, which I work in, and then they have other divisions like fulfillment and logistics, or wholesale, or retail, and the publishing division, though.
Cool. So, this is an interesting question for you because what is it being in a tabletop publisher? What does that, or like in the like the marketing kind of side of thing? What does that entail for you?
It's a lot of like direct work. I used to work in the NHL, which is working for a big company and like a fan base of millions of people, and that's a lot of like kind of behind the scenes, like theoretical marketing, working like with a lot of data, and like, really involved analytics and stuff. And it's more like working on a really large scale. With tabletop, you're much closer to your audience. So it's a lot of really direct marketing. So I'm like talking to our players and our customers like almost all day long, trying to see like how they're feeling, how they're responding to what we're doing. So it's much more connected, I would say.
Cool. Now, what kind of things because you mentioned that Starling is kind of like the core one for what you work on. What kind of things what kind of games does Starling put out?
So one that we put out last year that's done really well for us has been Everdell. We have a new expansion coming out from that one this summer, which is called Pearlbrook. We also publish Archmage and its new expansion, Ascendant. We have a few new games coming out. We have one called Anomaly. We have one called The War of Whispers. And then we've also had games that we inherited from before we kind of did this like merger from back when we were Game Salute. So we do like Alien Frontiers, King's Forge, Black Orchestra. Those are all under the Starling umbrella also.
Cool. So it sounds like you do, there's a lot of games under that umbrella. Now, is your focus just mainly with Starling, or do you throw some of your focus when it comes to the marketing to some of the other companies under the Tabletop Tycoon umbrella? Like,
I do focus on our other publishing divisions. So we also have so Starling Games is kind of for like real hobby games, heavy strategy games, like games for gamers, really.
Yeah.
And probably most of our games are under that umbrella. We also have Sparkworks, which is kind of gateway, approachable, light games. We have Flying Meeple, which are kids and family games. And then we recently acquired Victory Point Games, who do war games. So I work with all those companies. And then outside of actual board games, we also have accessories. Like we do Polyhero Dice, which is a dice line. So outside of that, like I don't really do a lot of work with the shipping company, for example. I pretty much exclusively work with publishing.
Yeah, understandable. Let's see, what was my next question? I forgot for a second. Sorry.
No, it's all right.
So you said like before you were more like you were definitely not into like a tabletop version of anything. What's your experience that got you, like your experience with tabletop that you had before you got even into a tabletop company?
Oh no, sorry. I've been a long time tabletop gamer for sure. I just didn't used to work in the industry.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I came into tabletop gaming. I mean, I grew up as a very involved video gamer. And then as like probably my early 20s, got really into tabletop RPGs. Like obviously started with D&D, and then it kind of grew from there. So getting into board games is just kind of a natural progression from that.
Okay, cool.
What's your what do you have a preference between role playing and board games?
Oh, it's such a tricky question.
I know it's a hard one.
I have a two-part answer to that. From probably like a pure gameplay sense, I probably lean towards more the role-playing games. But I really appreciate board games as like art objects, basically. All the work that goes into the art and the components. Just that feeling when you feel like a beautiful like piece of linen finish. Mm-hmm. I really value that aspect of board games. Yeah.
Cool. Now, because you are definitely, what's the experience you have with Kickstarter? Because I know that you still use that a bunch, for a lot of your projects that are out there.
Yeah, it's a little bit fraught, I'll be honest. Kickstarter has done a lot of amazing things. It's allowed us to connect to our audience in a completely different way. Like, I think that's probably my favorite thing about it. And it gives people ownership over the product, and also like the process of creating it, seeing how much people enjoy being involved in that process and learning about what we're doing behind the scenes. That part of it's really cool. I think Kickstarter itself has kind of struggled to reconcile the company to be and what it's become, and that's caused some tension with creators. Kind of infamously, we saw just recently they had some issues with Colossal Games canceled a bunch of their campaigns. So that it's like, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit apprehensive about the future of Kickstarter, just seeing like how it's morphing, because it's still, in the grand scheme of things, a relatively young company. So I'll be interested to see where it goes. And the games team at Kickstarter is awesome. I'm in touch with them all the time. They're very receptive to our feedback. So I'm really glad that they're managing things over there.
And so, if you think, would there be a time where your company would move away from that, and what would you do? Because I guess since you are more on the the marketing side, and Kickstarter is a very, as like we've always seen it, it's a very good marketing tool because it definitely gets people interested, and engaged in these games.
Well, Kickstarter brings its own whole audience to you, really. So that's something that's very hard to replace. We have done some games off Kickstarter. We haven't done Kickstarter for everything. And actually, back in like the earlier days of the company, before I was with them, they actually had their own version of Kickstarter that was like a direct pre-funded pre-order system. It's really hard to say. Kickstarter is such a behemoth in our industry right now. It's difficult to think about what a wholesale change off of Kickstarter would be at this point. There are definitely like some contenders out there who are trying to topple the giant, I guess. That's a really tall order, though. Yeah, so I wish I had a better answer other than it's just really hard to say, and it's something that in the industry we think about a lot, and we're following the progression of that very closely. But at the end of the day, the community of board gamers is always going to be there. They're so great with supporting us publishers and our new products. I think that even without Kickstarter, we would still have ways to connect with them and get them interested in what we're doing.
Okay. Now, because you do have a lot of products, I'm bad at noticing things. Do a lot of yours end up in like local game stores, or are you particularly like on online sales mostly?
So one thing that we have been doing recently with our last few releases is that we'll have 2 editions of a game, usually on like a standard edition and a collector's edition. The collector's edition may also be what you think of like a Kickstarter edition, with all the bling and extras in it. We don't call it that because it's not Kickstarter exclusive, so we just don't want that confusion. So we go with like collector's edition or deluxe edition. And that edition is usually a direct only item, which means only we sell it. So it might be available through our web store, from us at conventions, but it won't go to wholesale or regular retail channels. Our standard edition will go through those channels. So you will see standard editions of games of ours out in local game stores, but our blingier editions are typically only online or at conventions.
Cool. So talking about conventions, how's been your experience with the gaming conventions?
Conventions are great. I've been to, I just had my 3rd year at Origins, and I'll have my 3rd year at Gen Con coming up here. They're a blast, really. It's like I have my group of friends in the industry that, I may only get to see them once a year depending on the convention. It's just so great to see them. And it's awesome because, on Kickstarter, you're talking to the backers every day, and then sometimes at a convention you'll actually get to meet some of them, and it's such an awesome feeling when they come up to you and they say like, oh, thank you so much, like I've really enjoyed your updates, or I really love this game, I really liked getting to know you through the Kickstarter. That's really cool.
Cool. I'll wait for the entire, what's coming up kind of thing. But my question, is there a favorite amongst the games that you've made? Or one that maybe is not, the favorite, but one that you enjoy, you go back to at least,
I mean, my sentimental favorite will probably always be Everdell, really. Yeah. That was kind of, one of the first I worked on at the company. It was my first development credit. I actually met my fiance working on the game. So it's very important to me. I feel very sentimental about it, and it's a super fun game that I still love playing, even though I've played it well over 1,000 times at this point.
That's an understandable one. And that one you were saying that's got the new expansion coming out in fall.
It'll probably be out a little bit sooner than that, actually. We were able to wrap production a little bit earlier than we expected. So it's actually on the water right now. So it should be shipping at Kickstarter backers in July, and then we'll hopefully have it at Gen Con.
Now here's an interesting question that I think was raised by my previous guest, but is one that I think, because your company ships and does a lot more work, how is the new kind of tariffs that are going are in talks of coming out going to affect you? Because you are I guess you said you're not as much into the shipping side, but have you heard anything about it for your company, because you do a lot more products?
Yeah, so while I don't work directly in the shipping side, I coordinate production for our published games. So in that regard, I have a good sense of what's going on over there, because I'm communicating with them hey, the shipment's ready, it's ready to be picked up, here's where it needs to go. So in that regard, I do have a sense of what's going on with them. It's really literally $1 million question that we don't really know the answer to yet, because it's all still being worked out at levels far above us.
Yeah.
Not to get too soapboxy, it's really horrible for our industry, honestly. There's not really a good way around that. It would be, extremely damaging.
That's the thing
unfortunately, there's...
Yeah. Not really something you can do about it. It's a problem that was brought to our attention today. I didn't even think about how it would be affecting the industry, but now I'm actually concerned with a lot of people. It's oh, how is this going to affect? Because it's not going to affect you guys. Would that affect the prices of a lot of tabletop games too?
Yeah. So really our options, we don't really have any good options. Is we have to take a pretty severe financial hit, which might result in us. If we're not making the same profit on games, that might result in us needing to scale back our operations or lay off staff. Then our other alternative is just to raise the prices and basically pass on to customers, which isn't a good option either. No. And people say, oh, well, just manufacture your games in the U.S. Just we would love to do that. The reality is that there just isn't infrastructure in the U.S. to do that right now. No. People think it's a very easy change, oh, well, this will encourage somebody to finally open up an accessible games factory in the US. And it's okay, talk to me in 15 years and $1 billion later, then we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not just that, but the problem also is, if you want to be competitive in the market, foreign countries are cheaper to produce things in.
Yeah. Yep. So we're kind of reaping what we've sown for a really long time with exporting all of our, or outsourcing rather, all of our manufacturing. And then something that I would certainly like to see a better solution to. It's not going to be an overnight solution, which is basically what these tariffs are trying to accomplish. And it's certainly not a good solution to penalize, small businesses like us to try to get to that solution.
Right.
No, this is... It's a concern of mine now that has been brought up to me because there's a lot of really good developers on all sizes that would probably be affected by it, and like a smaller publisher like yourselves that still does a lot of great work. I would love to see, I like to see all these cool games that you've got out. These are very good ones. Like as I was saying, Everdale is actually one of the ones I think I've looked at before and been like, oh, this looks nice. Maybe I should get it. Granted, I don't have a lot of extra spending cash to get games occasionally, and usually in 95% of the time that I'm looking at games, I don't even pick up one.
No, I understand.
My co-host can attest to that, as he tends to get more than me. But
yeah,
that's something that we're going to be following very closely as it develops, and I'm interested isn't the right word. Maybe I'm anxious to see how the repercussions on the industry. But depending on how it plays out, it could be quite severe, or like some bureaucratic things that may not actually impact things that much. We just kind of have to see how they decide to do it or not do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, getting away from a little more serious of a question, because that one, came about from, some learning some stuff today. You guys do a lot of different board games and card games. Have you ever thought of some other aspects of tabletop, like things like RPGs, or I guess you've done some dice games? I'm assuming because you do a bunch, and you do have the dice division you talked about.
We've definitely thought about it. It's not something we have direct plans for right now. Part of like an RPG is just the workload is so intense. So much writing, editing, laying out an RPG book is really an undertaking. So it's probably not something that we're super equipped to do right now. I'd personally be thrilled to do one, but as far as I know, I don't think the company has plans to.
Okay. Joe, do you have anything else before I, throw out another one?
Is there anything that's in the works that that you guys are going to be maybe debuting later this year?
Yeah, definitely. So, like I said, Pearlbrook should be out at Gen Con. We'll also have a few new games debuting at Gen Con, which are Penny Lane, which is under our Sparkworks umbrella. That's kind of like a small backs worker placement game. It's by the creators of Mintworks, so it's kind of in that same vein. We'll have a new game under Starling called Anomaly, which is like a sci-fi horror game, which should be really, really cool. In the fall, we're actually going to have a couple new things for Everdell coming out. They haven't been officially announced, so I can't talk too much about them, but we'll be adding more content for Everdell. We're also going to be launching a new line of dice called Paragon Dice. I don't have a release date on that yet because we're still going through sampling with our factory and getting things just how we want it, but hopefully like end of summer, early fall, we'll be launching that new dice line.
Cool. How is it in the dice industry? Because that's something, I guess, that's very important to tabletop, but we have really not talked to anybody that hasn't is in there at all. That's an interesting industry as part of it.
I mean, the dice industry is extremely healthy. It's really thriving. Dice enthusiasts are mostly... There's a lot of overlap with board games, except... in board games, you kind of have two divisions of customers. You have like the kind of hobby gamers, and then you have the real hardcore like collectors, like completionists. In dice, it's mostly just that second group. It's mostly collectors. So it's really fun and also challenging because you're working with a super educated customer base. Like they know like about dice production. They can spot like a flaw when they see it. Like you cannot get anything by them, which is great because it holds us to a really high standard, and it encourages us to keep creating awesome products. But it's an awesome community. They're so cool and so supportive, so nice. I collect dice myself, so I feel very at home in that community.
You guys, well, I'm just going to say, from seeing your dice sets, you got some very interesting ones, is the thing,
Yeah, thank you. I assume you're referring to the Polyhero dice.
Yeah, the Polyhero dice. Those are just, it's interesting, Did you ever think of doing any non-standard dice?
Like.
Things like, you know, they've had D30s and like D100s, but like also like some of the other unusual numbers occasionally. Like I know some places you can get like very odd numbers like D3s and things like that, but those are very like.
So we've done a few of those with Polyhero Dice, and our set that's coming out next, the Rogue set, which should be shipping to Kickstarter backers next month also. We actually do have a D3. It's a grappling hook, so the hooks are the numbers, which is really cool. In our past 2 sets, we've also done D2s, which are like basically coin flips.
Yeah.
Done those. I know that the creators of the Polyhero Dice, who designed them, Greg and Dan May, they have done sketches of a D100. It's never been created or prototyped, but they've certainly been thinking about and experimenting with that.
Truthfully speaking, the last D100 I saw was a golf ball.
Yeah. Now that this one's, I can probably talk a little bit about it because it might not ever get made. It's like an interlocking. It's like a 2-piece die that's made up of 2 spinners. So it's almost like if you flattened out like your D10 and your percentile dice and overlaid them, it's kind of like that.
Okay, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
Neat. A more interesting way of going about it than just the actual, like, golf ball, which never quite worked. But it was interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting, yes.
Let's see here. Joe, you got anything else off the top of your head?
Not off the top of my head.
How's the, do you have any big, Kickstarter projects coming out then? How about that?
Yeah, probably. The next big Kickstarters we have will be, this new stuff for Everdell that hasn't officially been announced yet. We're trying to get Pearlbrook out the door, and then we can kind of talk about what's coming next. And then also this new line of, Paragon Dice. And the idea with Paragon Dice is that they're complete RPG sets. So literally, like, you know, if you're playing D&D and you're playing a bard, that you will need to play a bard from level 1 through 20. Like for every spell, every weapon, any combination. So they're really large. They're like 50 die sets.
Wow.
Yeah. And then we have some other cool accessories that will be going along with that. So yeah, Paragon Dice will be coming out hopefully in the next couple months.
And how's your convention circuit looking then for now? Because I guess we still have Gen Con and PAX Unplugged for the year.
Yeah, so we just left Origins last weekend. We'll be heading to Gen Con next month. And then we'll have Essen over in Germany and PAX Unplugged. I think we're probably going to do BGG Con as well.
How was Origins? As someone that has not been to Origins yet, how is that convention, and how does that compare to like some of the others? Like I've been to a couple of the PAX, so I kind of have an idea of how they work in general. You know.
Yeah, Origins is really fun. I kind of refer to it as like the primer for Gen Con, because Gen Con is like so over the top and crazy, and it's also really fun too, but it can like filming, especially like if you're not used to being in huge crowds, you know, like you're trying to walk through the aisles and you're literally just like pushing through the sea of people. It can be a little bit much. There's lots of cool stuff there, but like, you know, I get a little bit in crowds sometimes, so I often need to like go and sit alone and like recuperate for a minute and then dive back in. Origins is like much more chill than Gen Con in that way. It's not as crowded. It's not such like the mad crush every day to like get the new thing. It's a lot more like it's not as big of a sales show for us because people are kind of scoping out what they want to buy at Gen Con. So for us, it's more of like a showing stuff off kind of show.
Okay, I get that. That's interesting. All right, Joe, you got any more questions then?
Unfortunately, not off the top of my head.
I think I've hit up most of what I wanted to really ask and talk about right now that I can think of. Is there anything else that you would want to let the audience know about?
I think we pretty much covered it. Yeah, you were very thorough with your questions. I got to push all the things I wanted to push. So.
I'm getting better. I think the more of these to do, the more I know like the basic questions to ask. And the important points to hit up.
I guess one thing I could add, if we want to get soapboxy again, is
sure.
If you don't want board games to be subject to a tariff, you can call your representative, your senator, whoever, and tell them that.
Yeah, no, I would say like it's if you are a big fan of tabletop games and you like buying a lot of tabletop games, it's definitely something to consider as getting a little like involved in the local politics or your politics and like tell someone. Don't mess around with this and make it either that there's not as many of them or I have to pay more. Both suck.
Yeah. Yeah, no, one of my reps is like one of the main parts of his platform is small businesses. So I certainly was like emailing back and forth with his office like, hey, we're a small business, you got to help us out here.
Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't also in the grand scheme there it trickles down. Not only is going to affect smaller companies who produce stuff, but also the game stores.
Yeah,
it's already hard sometimes to find a really good game store that carries a decent amount, and if tariffs happen, obviously creators are going to have to probably pay a little bit more. Charge a bit more to pay for what they're doing. So the game stores are going to have to pay more up front. And it's going to put people out of business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's not like a exaggeration. Like
no.
If that goes through, there will definitely be very palpable consequences in the industry.
Well, we can.
Sorry to end on that note.
No, that's a fine note. I mean, it's one of those things that we have to keep an eye out. That I think is important to keep an eye out on. I think that's what it is like when a problem like this occurs because it's not just our industry, there's other industries, but our industry as people that are like, as me and Joe as media in the industry, and you that are someone in the industry, we understand that it's important to the industry that we are in, to throw this out there so people can recognize it and know about it and react appropriately to it, so that our love of the media, this media that we have, doesn't get hit as much or as much anymore. So keep in mind, folks. But Brenna, thank you for joining us. Definitely has been fun.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Sure.
Yeah, it's been great.
Definitely, if you ever want to go into depth and talk about any other product you guys are coming out with, welcome back on the show.
That'd be great.
Yep, and just keep us informed of all those Kickstarters and other games that are coming out, and we'll make sure to give them a good shout out here on the channel. Definitely.
Awesome. We'll do. Well, if you guys haven't played Everdell yet, we're getting the reprint back in stock of that, so I can definitely send one your way so you can check it out.
Cool. That'd be great.
Awesome. Yeah, that'd be very nice. Thank you.
Awesome. We definitely would love to do that. We can put it up on our review segment that we sometimes do.
Awesome.
When we have an opportunity to. So, all right.
Does the cat help with the reviews?
The cat always helps. It's Stream Cat. She's a very fine cat, but she loves to come in and come out as I'm doing things. And Damien's a good girl.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Yep. We'll let you get running, and then we'll move on to our back end of our segments then.
All right. Take care.
Yep. Take care.
Yep. Bye. Let's switch over to... which one did I have that had both of us? I had one here from last week. Hey, that's close. It works. So we have one more last topic that we quickly hit on before we get going. So we'll probably pick about 5 minutes on this and then finish up for today. Apparently, this is a very interesting thing, is that with BESM 4th edition that we kind of had talked about an announcement for, they've introduced BESM Naked, which isn't Which is kind of like a
baby.
I know. Is that the hentai version of it? No, it's apparently a stripped down version of 4th edition, which I'm questioning because BESM's pretty simple as it is. I never called it a very difficult system. I mean, there was some things in it that made it not like the easiest system in the world, but to require 2 different games, like a standard 4th edition and a stripped down like alternate edition, is that actually needed?
I don't know. Maybe some people find it.
Maybe they're making more complexity to it than they've had in previous editions, and that's why they think they need it. I mean, like, they're claiming that the BESM Naked is a gateway product, is what they're kind of calling it, of sorts. That's giving you an idea of, like, if you're an anime or manga fan and want to try out a role-playing game that's based upon it, that's the way to try to check it out. And they're saying that the BESM Naked is going to be closer to the 1st edition in the mannerisms that's played, which I unfortunately never played the 1st edition. I played a tiny bit of 2nd edition, and then technically one of the expanded versions of 2nd edition because I got one of the alternate, like, full alternate setting books that they came out with during 2nd edition, and then I had the 3rd edition book.
Right.
So they're claiming it's like the 4th edition is expanding the tri-stat system as it is. So, and they're not really going into details on the BESM Naked, whether or not that's going to be an actual sold second product, or maybe that's something that will be offered for free, or maybe if it's offered for like cheaper, if it's a smaller book, maybe, but I don't know.
On the Facebook page for it, though, I think it's funny. It shows BESM, role playing, and then it'll switch to BESM Naked, and everyone's like shirtless and in their underwear.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good joke to go along with it. I mean, that's one of those things. But they do show, an example of like a jumping ability. How like they go through a lot of details talking about it and what it means, and then they're like. They just, like, you can... And then, like, the naked version is like, you can jump more than normal!
Yeah.
I mean, it's like...
They're simplifying, there's too simplified.
Yeah, I feel like maybe the naked version needs a little bit more than what they've shown off on their Facebook page with the announcement. It feels...
But, I mean, the Kickstarter does start on the 2nd of next month, so we'll see relatively quick what exactly they're going for.
Yeah, I guess that's true. We will see both, because I'm assuming that with the 4th edition Kickstarter will be naked also. And so I'm interested, like, are they going to be kickstarting it alongside of it? Is this just going to be a secondary product that maybe you could get on a expanded part of the Kickstarter? What's the full details? And I guess we're going to see more when it starts out July 2nd. But it's a very unusual announcement, I think, to see at this point in time.
Agreed.
Anyway, let's move on to our rest of our segments though today, because we have a few that I do want to hit on before we quickly finish up. We don't have a deeper discussion. Kickstarter Korner, I just want to give a quick shout out to something because I try to shout out, when it comes to the more larger companies, I at least try to shout out their Kickstarters, or if we're not talking about them. Aldrich Games, who we had Peter on, who worked on Tiny Towns associated with them. They got a Kickstarter up at 6 days to go, Thunderstone Quest. It's funded. It's I think it's 2 new quests for it, so that's their Thunderstone Quest line. So it's new products part of it, So if you were a fan of that, or if you want to get into their Thunderstone Quest, which was successfully kickstarted previously, this is an opportunity to do it. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. How about our week in tabletop? We get a thoughtful things this week.
Yeah. Let's see. What did Saturday we did? Disney Villains.
Yeah, Villainous. I think it was called.
Yeah.
Which is
no, I thought it was it's called Disney Villains.
I thought
maybe it's Villainous. My brain is farting then. So.
It's Disney Villainous board game. Yeah.
Villainous. Okay. You're right. I'm wrong.
No, it was I randomly remembered it. It could have been very easily Disney villains. I did Google it just to make sure I got the right name too. It was an interesting little thing. I guess it's like the idea is that you're one of the Disney villains and you have to, twist fate and make it that you succeed in your plan. I was King John from Robin Hood. You were you were Jafar.
I was Jafar from Aladdin.
Your fiance was
She was Ursula.
Then we had
and our friend Blaze
was Captain Hook, and we had someone else with us that was being Maleficent.
Yes, your cousin.
Yeah, and the thing is, I have to report that King John, there's still strategy to it. He's the easiest to play.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you still need strategy. It still needs to go on, but you don't have to think as hard about a lot of the strategies because it's basically just the normal amount of currency you have to amass. You have to get to a certain amount of it. Other people have a little bit more complexity in the way they do things, and I can understand that. And there's a lot more strategies to it, but it's not awful.
No.
You got close.
No, it's a fun... yeah, I did. I lucked out and started off with a lot of what I needed right away.
I think I won because at the last turn, when I drew up cards, I got you get 3 of the power on someone else's turn if they have at least 6 power, which everybody had been amassing a bunch of, so it was late game. I was at 18. I needed 20 at the start of my turn. So at the during my opponent Blaze's turn, who was right before me, when he had finished out his plays before he ended his turn, I was just like, bam, I win. You haven't done anything you didn't have a chance to do anything to sabotage me. I can quickly throw this out here and win. Granted, I think if I hadn't done that, you had a very good chance of winning on your next turn. I think you would needed 2 turns. I think you would set up that you needed 2 turns because someone got Aladdin on you to steal something from you, kind of thing. So
yeah,
you would have needed you would have been delayed, but you wouldn't have been gone. For me, True. It was up in the air because it would have depended on how my turn went anyway, and what could have been played on me anyway. So it ended up an interesting game. I played again. It was fun.
Oh yeah.
Then we did Sunday's Tabletop, where we did Pandemic. Was that Pandemic this week?
Yes. Shoot.
I'm going to change. I'm going to check my information.
No, we did. I think we did something.
Libertera.
Libertera. That's
Libertalia. Libertalia, where we were pirates.
Libertalia.
So, yeah, that was an interesting game. I think that game is very cutthroat, and you have to recognize that as soon as you get in there. It is a game where you're going to be screwing over the other people right away. There is no doubt in my mind that, if you're going into playing that game, you have to have the right attitude and know that it is it's a hard game to not get screwed over, at least at some point in time, and it's just about, can you plan appropriately for recovery, I think, and push your agenda forward enough to win. I think because the first round we were less cutthroat and didn't understand a lot of that, because we did play twice. The first time kind of got messed up because going back.
Well, yeah, the first round we screwed up on, and it happened.
Yeah, and then the second round, I had a really good first round, and I think after that people kept me well in check, but it wasn't enough to get anybody ahead of me after that first round. I think that was what I used to coattail myself to victory.
So, right.
But it's an interesting game. I would love to try it again sometime. Just, going in there knowing a little bit more about it is helpful. Definitely. And the nature of the game. And then I did not have Legacies of Kain. That might be on hiatus because I think one of my players has a full-time job now that I don't think he's free on Tuesdays. So I might be looking for someone for that. That's up in the air right now. And then we did do Madness of the Land, where we didn't get to the actual dragon fight, but we got close. Technically speaking, when we started that day, I expected you guys to maybe even delay even farther than you did.
Wow.
Granted, when we had the entire scene at the bar, with Zern and Zach, it was sort of like, I didn't expect him to work on the poor drunk guy that had like a traumatic past as much as he did. He's like, we need fighters. It's like, look, I was a fighter. My fellow soldiers one of them betrayed me, tried to murder him, and I killed him in self-defense. People accustomed that, so people, I didn't get in trouble for it. But still, I don't want to, go with people. I can't trust them anymore. You're just telling me to trust people? That they're not going to try to stab me in the back? I mean, that was the entire thing he was trying to go with. Zach ignored that entire fact, and it was like, it doesn't care. I don't care if you don't trust people to not stab you in the back. Stop drinking. It was so bad. I loved it. So it was fun. And they got to the swamp and got to the Dragon's Lair. Theoretically, because it's the area that they think is the Dragon's Lair, but they haven't seen evidence of it. But I'm probably not going to screw them over that much because, well, I mean, I don't want to drag on the entire thing for way much longer. You
had to do that.
It hasn't been bad. It hasn't been bad of a drag on, but because again, it's been a lot of good role playing, but still, it was it has made the back end of the season a lot longer than I thought it would be, which has been fine by me. And that was our big tabletop stuff this week. And I think that's it. So questions, ask the table. So if you're in chat right now and you have a question for us, go ahead and throw it up in chat. Or when we are in chat next week, you can do the same there. You can also hit me up at my Discord. Discord is linked below. That should be working. I'll have to check it just to make sure. So you can join my Discord channel there, where it's a great place to ask me questions, check out what's going on, all that kind of things. You can also throw it up in the description of this as a YouTube video, which will be going up sometime over the next week. That's a good way to reach us. We have Discussing Tabletop at yahoo.com. Each of our Twitters, which at Dracovin for me, or at JWSecret81 for Joe. Did I get that correct?
Yep. Yes, you got it.
Because I don't have it up on this overlay, the two-player overlay, which I forget that I hadn't done it. So I've just been with the extra people. I've been just kind of switching over to using this one, and
Right.
I was saying that. So if you message us or just at us on Twitter, that's another place. But any way you want to reach us questions, we will answer them right away if we can. Or if you feel it's like an appropriate discussion question we can throw up on the channel here, we will do so in the segment. 95% of the questions I do tend to not come up here. I think we've had like one or two which have been up on which we've had for here, which is fine by me. But I'm giving the option that if you ever want to ask us a question about tabletop or anything nerdy, you can. And thank you again to our two guests, to Adam and Brenna. Both of you were great, and we got some great discussions on a lot of interesting and cool games. We got to run into a problem that's in the tabletop industry that I was unaware of until today. So hey,
right.
That's something good to talk about, if it's a problem that's there and should be talked about. And, thank you again to Joe for always joining me for these crazy things.
Of course.
We should be back next week, same time, same place. I believe we have a guest for it. I'll have to check just to make sure. At least one guest. And if you wanted to see more of us, Sunday's Tabletop tomorrow, we should be playing. Maybe we'll do No Honor Among Thieves, or at least I'll put it on the schedule of doing it sometime, depending on the players and stuff.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea to aim for.
Yeah, I'll see how many players we get, because that's usually what I do, and if not, we can always schedule a special episode to do that too, because, definitely. Madness of Land on Thursdays, Legacies of Kain, I will let people know, hopefully by Monday, whether it's going to be on hiatus until we get another player or if we're going to be playing. I should be able to talk with it's Umber, who got a new, more full-time job, one of the players. So congratulations to him, but that also might mean he might not have time to join us. Right. It's good to get a new job when you need one, but it's it does change the schedule, so which we understand here at the channel. But thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.